So hello everybody who is already back and ready for the next masterclass. Very soon Jeroen Baten will be online, and Jeroen Baten is a very renowned Linux professional. Jeroen is also Jeroen is also very well known as a Linux author and also an Odoo specialist. So we are going to watch and see what Jeroen has to tell us. Yes.
My name is Jeroen Baten. I'm one of the founders of Open Source Science, and I've been an open source consultant since 1998. I've written books and software, and I teach, coach and train people both in technology and in soft skills. There are no slides, so close your eyes and relax while I try to tell you a story. As for centuries, stories have been the way in our civilization to transfer knowledge. Let me start with why. Why use Linux and open source software? Well, because it made me happy when I started using open source software back in 1998. And I think it makes people happy, and I'm sure it will make you happy. At the moment, this talk is delivered to people all over the world. That means people with very different cultural backgrounds and with many cultural differences. This brings me to the Harvard method, the Harvard negotiation method called getting to yes, as this method is very much suited to bridge cultural differences. Despite cultural differences, everywhere there is a universal desire to learn, to gain knowledge. Knowledge as a tool to escape poverty, knowledge to increase career perspective, and knowledge to be able to understand each other. Once there was a Finnish IT student called Linus Torvalds. He started a personal experiment that grew to changing the world. He was building his work on the shoulders of others who did prior work, and a lot was already done by the GNU project of the Free Software Foundation. This brings me to the importance of community and communication, learning and growing step by step. How to conquer the world, you might ask? Well, without violence. Is there a recipe, a playbook? No. But for me that started in 2000, questions about Linux on the desktop. Well, first Linux started replacing traditional closed-source Unixes on servers. Then came embedded software, software embedded in devices like television sets and DVD players, MP3 players, and set-top boxes for televisions that received video streams over the internet. Then came the supercomputing sector. See, for instance, the website top500.org. It started with one, but now all 500 are Linux-based. Then mobile came to life, with open source Android. Tablets appeared, still no Linux on the desktop. But most people these days use the internet without a desktop, using phone or tablet. And most of the applications are being served by Linux servers. The cloud appeared. Currently, Linux has more than 50% of all cloud workloads. And these days everybody talks about AI. Again, building on the shoulders of others, with the recent impact of the open source DeepSeek model. AI also presents an educational struggle, the need for a personal learning effort opposed to the quick results students want to get. But learning means being able to check the results and fix errors. Learning breeds critical thinking. The use of AI doesn't. At the same time, AI will increase productivity enormously for all sorts of programmers, but is only useful if you are able to understand what AI proposes. And AI software itself, with its huge data needs, also needs a stable and efficient OS. Again, Linux. So far the history lesson. Now on to the future. What do I think are the trends for the next few years in Linux and open source? Well, of course, increased adoption of AI and machine learning, with open source projects increasingly incorporating AI and machine learning capabilities, making these technologies more accessible to developers and organizations. Also called Enhanced Developer Experience, DX for short. Think of projects like Cursor, Jan, DeepSeek, Mistral, and integrations like Visual Studio Code with Copilot and the ChatGPT built-in web IDE. And while being happy with the good things that AI brings, beware of sellers of unrealistic dreams, but always dream unrealistically yourself. Another thing I see is the rise of decentralized open source platforms. There's a growing interest in decentralized platforms that allow for more collaborative and transparent development processes. Less commercial ads, sometimes even none, less steering of public opinion. See how Mastodon grows, how PixelFed as a picture sharing platform booms. Another thing I see is the upcoming increased focus on sustainability and funding by large organizations. Sustainability of open source is becoming a priority, with more projects seeking sustainable funding models to ensure long-term viability. There are more and more funding options for open source developers, thanks to organizations like the German Sovereign Tech Fund, the Dutch NLNet Foundation, and the US Open Collective. The Sovereign Tech Fund, for instance, invested €700,000 in FreeBSD. Our Open Collective Foundation dispersing $50 million to open source projects in 2024 alone. Numbers unheard of until very recently. Another thing I see is the emphasis on security and privacy. With rising security threats, there's a stronger focus on enhancing security and privacy measures within open source projects. With the growing popularity of open source, so too grows the attempts at supply chain attacks to try to corrupt popular software libraries to spread ransomware or data theft. And last but not least, I see the growth of diversity and inclusion. Efforts to increase diversity and inclusion within the open source community are gaining momentum, aiming to create a more inclusive environment for all contributors. For instance, the rise of code of conducts at events. For I believe a civilization can be measured by how it treats its more vulnerable members. This is not woke, this is common decency. Let me be clear about this. There is no room for bullying in today's modern open source society. Will generative AI one day rule the world? Nah, because the world isn't run by computers, it's run by people. And again, the importance of a healthy community and communication is a vital part of that. Learning and growing step by step. Learning also means asking questions, even when they are hard, uncomfortable questions. That is not a matter of disrespect. That is a way to find answers to improve our society. Working in a society is about solving problems every day. If there are no problems to fix, there's no work to be done. The goal of life is, after safety and food, in my opinion, ultimately to be happy. So try not to talk about some group as them, but see the actions of individuals. Because a few people just want to see the world burn, but most people just want to be happy. But make no mistake, there will always be problems to solve. So learn how to solve them. Then solve them. Then tell others how you solve them. So others can stand on your shoulders. And living standards in the world increase. And happiness increases. So in conclusion, use and build open systems with open source software and open data. And be happy. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Jeroen, for your insight into Linux development and the future that holds in terms of open source and AI, and a huge plethora of information there. One of the best parts is this hackathon. We are focusing a lot of efforts on Ubuntu Touch product development, which is Linux on telephones, and the Odoo development efforts. So a lot of projects have been given to students and university participants from across the world. They are going to participate in some of the great projects, or live projects as we call it, and looking forward for that. In the next 5 minutes, we are going to start a panel discussion headed by Eric Maltz from Open Source Science. Panelists from India will be joining, panelists from across the world will be joining. Jeroen Baten himself will join, and we would start in the next 5 minutes. Thank you.